Trustee Bettinger? Trustee Johnson?
Here.
Trustee Bear? Here. Trustee Knutson?
Here.
Trustee Meck?
Here.
Trustee Pattison? Here. Mayor Bachran?
Here. All right, we have a quorum and we can continue. First thing on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Can I get a motion to that effect?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second? Any discussion? Yes, Tammy.
Oh, I hope I didn't forget this page. Yeah, I just would like, in approving this motion, consideration of Mr. Bruner's letter asking to remove survey from agenda. So it sounds like he wants to speak. I just wanted to make sure
Okay.
he had that opportunity.
All right. Any other discussion by the board? All right, seeing none, Mr. Bruner. Okay, A, turn on the microphone. No, the power's not on. Oh, wait, there you go.
goes.
All right, turn on the microphone.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, name and address.
Bill Brunner, Paonia,
Address, Bill.
608 Second.
Thank you, Bill.
Okay. Seeing as that you've got a motion, I believe, and a vote to have a training about the citizen complaint, wouldn't it be more appropriate to put off discussion of that matter until after you've had that training session? It'd certainly be a more informed discussion by the board. And also, I think the mayor's item of her survey is ill-advised and should also be removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Okay, any other discussion? Yeah, sure.
Could we get some input from Attorney Nerlin on whether that would be an appropriate course of action regarding the complaint?
So we don't have a scheduled work session with Sam Light from CIRSA. The direction that I received at the last board meeting was to reach out to Mr. Light to schedule a meeting for the trustees training. I've done that. I have not heard anything as of yet. Certainly as soon as we have some proposed dates, I'll reach out to the mayor and the town administrator to provide those. I would say that these are somewhat independent. We have an independent allegation from a community member with respect to the alleged conduct of a board member, and then standalone we've got a training that's going to be scheduled with Sam Light or his representative from CIRSA.
Okay, anything else? All right, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, that motion carries. All right, next thing on the agenda is announcements. And the first thing is a declaration of stage 1 drought. And an explanation of that is included in the packet. Let's see. And it included the resolution that we passed and then what the regulations are. And at this time, it's voluntary restrictions only, and that we are not yet diverting from secondary water, but it is possible or imminent. It does not apply to drip systems and the use of hand watering. It means to reduce irrigation. No irrigating when wind gusts or sustained winds in order to minimize evaporation. Outreach on water use and fixing leaks, limited gardening, limit car washing, pond or pool filling. And just be aware, we may be going to stage 2. All right. Next part is I do have some comments I would like to make. Oh, I am sorry, Tammy. I didn't see your hand over there.
I hope this is an appropriate question. How will the town determine when to enter stage 2 modified mandatory restrictions? What are their parameters for that? Do we know?
Yes, that's when we meet in the trigger condition on the attachment for the Water Conservation Management Plan. That is when demand exceeds the system capacity, meaning we're no longer spilling excess water at the treatment plants. And we also have discussed a few other items that we would like to include in that. We'd like to beef up this attachment to have a little bit more detail. We do have a draft version that Public Works Director Loberg and I are working on that we plan to provide to the Advisory Water Committee for input and recommendations as well as soon as it's complete.
Okay, thank you very much. All right. So, first and foremost, I want to emphasize how much I and the members of the board appreciate the input from the people of the town of Paonia as we make our decisions. Your input helps us receive different perspectives and gain information that we might not have. It is invaluable in helping us come to the best decisions we can make for the town. That is also why it is mandated in Resolution 2017-10 that the public be given the opportunity to speak on the agenda items as well as at the beginning of the meeting. That being said, there are rules of conduct that apply to each of us in order to have fair and open meetings, some of which have been slipping in the recent months. One of those rules is to remain silent unless you are recognized by the chairperson. This includes board members, staff, and members of the public. Agenda items are discussed by the board first and then open to comment from the public. Public comment will not be taken until the board has finished its discussion. In order to speak, a person must be recognized by the presiding officer. I repeat, you are not allowed to address the board before you are recognized by the chair. Before speaking, please state your name, address, and if you are representing any organization. All comments will be directed at the chairperson only and should be confined to the agenda item under discussion, not any side issues or side comments. The speaker should offer only factual information and refrain from personal attacks. If these rules are not obeyed or the person exhibits disruptive behavior, they can be removed from the meeting. Resolution 2017-10 also sets out different rules for executive sessions. There is no public discussion or comment about the motion to go into executive session. This is strictly a board decision. Finally, we are asking if you want to speak at a meeting, please put your name, contact information, and subject on the sheet at the back of the room so that staff can contact you if needed to resolve your problem. All right. Next item on the agenda is recognition of visitors and guests. This is for anyone who would like to address an item that is not on the agenda. Is there anyone who would like to address the board? All right, seeing none, let's move on with staff reports. Administrator's report. Corinne.
Thank you. I don't have anything additional to add to the written report that was provided in the packet other than to, again, encourage the board. Included in the packet is the Paonia in Motion Design Workshop schedule. And I would like to strongly encourage the board members to attend any of the drop-in hours or meetings that they may be able to over the next 2 days, since today is already away from us, especially the community workshop that will be held tomorrow evening at the Blue Sage Center from 6 to 8 p.m. The consultants will be on site and will be able to provide a lot of information on the process, where they're at, and answer questions tomorrow night as well. So I do encourage anyone that's able to attend. And of course, I'm open to any questions that anyone has.
All right, questions for the town administrator from the board? Yes, Michelle.
I just wanted to check on the status of the SGM asset inventory. I didn't see the update on that specifically.
We have the asset inventory draft portion, and SGM is in the final stages of completing the addition that we added to that specific to the wastewater treatment plant. Travis, did you get an update from SGM on the timeline?
I should have numbers or the stuff on the wastewater treatment plant I should have by this end of this week.
Okay, other questions from the board? Yes.
Thank you. Just one other question. On the report, it says that there was a meeting scheduled for today with the Paonia Ditch Company. Is there any update on that?
Yes, Corinne and Travis and I met with the Paonia Ditch Company this afternoon, and I'll include an update in the next meeting's report. So.
Thank you.
Anything else from the board? Okay, seeing none. Mr. Bruner?
Bill Bruner, 608 2nd Street. Does that preliminary report include what the emails refer to as the answer to the moratorium?
That will be coming from JDS Hydro, and that is a standalone report that we added as a change order to the initial infrastructure analysis grant, and that will come at the end of the process after staff and the board completes review of the initial draft document that we have received.
Okay, so I assume you're doing that under a deliberative niche in the law?
I think it's fair to say it's work product.
Huh. Okay. But so when do you expect to see that?
To see, when do I expect to see what?
The report on what's referred to as the answer to the moratorium.
If all goes well with the schedule, that reminds me of another update I will give the board. That standalone report will probably not be received until August.
Till August?
Yes.
Woo! Thank you.
You're welcome. The other thing that I did want to update the board on Friday we heard from DOLA that there had been an error in their the finalization dates on 9 different communities' contracts, and so they did ask us to stop work on the infrastructure analysis until such a time that they can update and do an extension on our grant agreement. I did reach out to DOLA at that time, and they agreed to allow JDS to continue to work through yesterday so that we could receive the draft document for review. It's about a 3-week process for us to provide the information that DOLA needs and for their contract entity to then give us an updated and new contract. So it delays our timeline a little bit, but it is a minor delay, and they were very apologetic and have bumped the 9 communities that they made this error on to the top of the list to get the contracts updated. So that will be forthcoming from DOLA. In the meantime, we do have the draft. It's out to the Advisory Water Committee and to staff and the board for review and comments so that we're ready with comments once DOLA sends us the updated agreement. So that was the other update.
Any other questions? All right. Yes, Ms. Smith. Excuse me, Ms. Smith. Oh, I thought you said,
Okay. Paige Smith, 215 Delta Avenue, and I just wanted to get a clarification. The JDS Hydro Infrastructure draft that was going to be yesterday, did it come in yesterday, or is that what's in August?
No, we got the preliminary report, but it is only a preliminary report. We won't have a finalized report until August.
Will the Water Advisory Board
They already
get that? Very good. Great. Thank you. Secondly, in Ms. Corinne's report, she asked if people have dates they'd like to get on the calendar. And I just wanted to say I sent a comment last month to get the Tree Board meeting and the Water Advisory Board meeting on the calendar, and I didn't get a response. That was from the public comment page, and they weren't added until very late. And I would just like to ask that they be added as soon as possible for this month, which would be great. And third, I'm glad to see that there's now a contract with the ORC and that it was not totally pro bono. Obviously, we're paying $250, and I think that's a big point to note to the trustees that once I brought up what CDPHE requires, then it sounds like things were addressed as they should be. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Watson?
Suzanne Watson, 903 2nd Street. So I wanted to know, refresh my memory about the DOLA grant. What specifically is this grant that you're talking about? It sounds like it's a water grant.
The infrastructure analysis is an administrative grant through DOLA.
Okay, how much is it for potentially?
We received it. It's what's paid for the JDS Hydro study, and it was approximately, I want to say around $25,000.
Okay, thank you. And then where does the money, where in the budget are you taking the money from now for the contract that we have with the ORC?
The ORC contract, no money has been paid to him, and if the agreement has to go beyond May, then we will have to issue him the $250 payment, and it will come out of our water budget.
Okay, thank you.
All right, any other questions? All right, seeing none, let's move on to Public Works Utilities report. Travis?
I submitted a written report and don't have anything to add to it unless you guys have any questions.
All right, questions for Travis from the board? Yes, Dave.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I was curious about the output at the springs, just what you've seen recently.
The spring production has come up a little bit, but it is still pretty low for this time of year.
So we're not shedding water then? There's no excess?
We are shedding a little bit, but not as much as we usually do.
Okay, thank you very much.
I have a question too, Travis. Do we have any idea if we're going to be opening the bulk water system? And if so, are we going to do it with limits?
We are doing a test run with the town, setting up an account right now, and then it should be open this week for sure.
Okay, thank you. Yes, Bill.
Thank you, Mayor. The Public Works Committee has discussed the bulk water system, and we think that the operation of that water system is not necessarily a staff directive, but it's more that the board needs to address our policy on how we're going to address the water system. So at some point we need to have that discussion, and then we can tell the staff what we want to do.
All right, thank you, Bill. Any other questions? All right, seeing none. Anything from the public?
Mayor Backren,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to follow up on that to make sure I understood. So the bulk water system, the suggestion was that the board needs to address whether we would put any restrictions on that rather than a staff decision. Is that accurate?
I believe that it should be a board policy decision on how we're going to manage the bulk fill station, whether we allow unrestricted access to it, limited restriction access to it, and our policy on that. I don't think that decision should be left in necessarily the staff hands, but it should the policy should reflect our decision.
Okay, thank you. Is that something we should get on the agenda shortly in light of our current water restrictions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we should.
Mayor, if I may add a little more to that. So the intention with that was to include recommendations in the proposed modification to numbers for water if we were to impose higher rates or drought rates for water consumption during the drought months, that would be part of that resolution that the board would review with recommendations for any kind of restrictions that would be placed on the bulk fill station, similar to restrictions that would be placed on anyone who's connected to a tap.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments, questions? All right, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to the police report. Chief Ferguson is currently on vacation, and the report from the police department's activity is in the packet. And I would be happy to attempt to answer any questions anyone has about it.
Mayor?
Yes, Bill.
What's the ongoing situation with Hotchkiss?
As of Saturday will be our last shift in Hotchkiss. They have not updated us as to what their situation is, but they no longer require our services.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to finance report. Anybody? Okay, let's move on to the attorney's report. Mr. Nerlin.
Thank you, Mayor. I don't have a written report. As I indicated, based on the direction provided by the trustees, I reached out to Sam Light with CIRSA, and as soon as we have some possible dates, we'll follow up with that. In addition to that, Mayor, you and Corinne and I met with Robbie LaValle and Wendell Kuntz with Delta County to discuss the airport, the North Fork Airport, and I anticipate that we'll be requesting a work session in early to mid-June, so that we can have that as a specific agenda item for discussion.
Thank you. Any questions for Attorney Nerlin? Seeing none, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on to Treasurer's report. Mr. King, you have the floor.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We reviewed and released the payroll for the payroll period. Disbursements have been reviewed with the Finance and Personnel Committee, and we recommend approval. In your packet, you'll see that you've been given a draft fund balance and reserve policy. We have scheduled that to have formal discussion on the 25th of May. This is in response to the board's interest in the concept of a reserve policy and the use of restricted funds versus dedicated funds versus balance funds that we would use to apply for grant money. In any case, I would request the board to review this draft policy, and we'd be happy to respond to questions on the 25th of May. That concludes my report, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. King. Any questions for Mr. King from the board? Yes, Sammy.
I actually just have a comment, if I may. I think that there's a lot of really very helpful information in this that will help us through the budget season as well. So I would urge people to please take your time and go through it and learn as much as you can from it. It'll come in handy later on.
Yes, Mr. Bear.
Update on the audit. I know that it's getting to be that season, so I just wanted to hear what your thoughts were.
The audit is in progress. We have had one small glitch in that the personnel that have been assigned to our audit, that individual has gotten another job, and we now have a new person with the audit firm that is working with our finance director, and the last thing she had to do is do an actual balance sheet for their information, and we haven't heard anything since. So we assume it's moving forward appropriately.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet.
Other questions? Seeing none. Mr. King, if we have questions on the draft balance and reserve policy, would it be beneficial for us to give those to you in advance or save them for the meeting?
It would really be helpful if you could do it in advance, but obviously that the purpose of the discussion at the meeting is to answer any questions the board might have, and to the extent that they have any concerns or recommendations as it relates to policy, advance notice would be appreciated.
All right, thank you. All right, anything from the public? All right, seeing none, let's move on with disbursements.
Madam Mayor. on page 50 of the packet. You with me? May I make a motion?
Yes, please
Okay.
do.
Thanks, Madam Mayor. I'd like to move that we approve accounts payable in the amount of $37,949.77. The Norris retirement payment scheduled for 5/26 of $1,680. The Chase credit card of $9,861.73. The Amazon credit card of $709.80. The transfer to payroll of $24,264.24. Payroll taxes of $10,669.45. And a payroll direct deposit of $24,264.24.
Okay, do I have a second on that motion? Second. All right, discussion? Yes, Bill.
I had some questions concerning the credit card payments. They are the tractor supply company. There's several charges, but the largest being $7,392. What are those concerning?
That was the sander that we're using for, now that we don't have snow, a sander to spread sand is now available to us that we ordered in November.
Okay, so that is delivery of the sander.
Yeah, so we're clear for a May snowstorm.
Well, that's good to hear. Coltrane Coffee House, this small charge, but I just thought that was unusual.
That is the, when we hosted the monthly meeting with managers and administrators for the county, that is the coffee that the town provided for the other managers and administrators for when we hosted it.
Okay. And Blue to Gold, what is that? PayPal Blue to Gold, $299.
Is that a police department expense?
That's police department expense? Okay. All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? Yes, Michelle.
Just a procedural question. I noticed that we're approving a charge that isn't actually happening until after our next meeting. I'm wondering why it was included on this month's, the Norris retirement on 5/26.
Just typically approve at the beginning of each month.
Okay, I may have just missed it in previous months and I happened to notice it. Thank you. And then it seems like our fuel charge for the month was a little bit high. If you add the three together, we're, I think, just over $3,000 on fuel charges. And I'm wondering if we were filling tanks or if we actually drove. Is that it? The additional driving there? I don't need an answer right
That would be
now.
my assumption. As far
Okay.
as the police department portion of the fuel would be the additional commute to Hotchkiss for covering the shifts in Hotchkiss.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, anything from the public? Yes, Ms. Watson.
So a follow-up on the fuel charge question, is that taken into account when we get reimbursed from Hotchkiss for police services?
Yes, it is.
Okay, do we do the exact amount or do we do a flat rate?
We've been doing $40 an hour.
Okay, thanks.
All right, anything else from the public? All right, we have a motion and a second on disbursements. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Let's move on to the consent agenda. We have regular minutes, a liquor license renewal, and a special event permit. Do we have any questions about any of these? Yes, Dave.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I just wanted to remind the trustees that the motion we made about the workshop it was not in, I corrected this, but it's June 15th at 5:30. And I've talked to Amanda about getting that in the minutes. So it's the Colorado Oil and Gas Conservation Commission. And it's the Colorado Communities for Climate Action.
Thank you, Dave. Any other comments?
The Pickett and Productions, this Picking in the Park?
Yes, it is.
We are not, oh, am I correct in saying that we are not waiving any fees?
The request included in the packet was to continue the waiving of fees that the board approved for 2020, since the 2020 concert series was canceled due to COVID-19.
Yes, but we didn't charge them for 2019 either, did we?
Yes, we did. 2020 was the first year he was approved for any waiving of fees.
So we had 1 year where we collected a fee and they didn't perform?
No, we collected a fee, we assessed a fee and collected a fee in 2019. He came before the board early 2020 requesting fees be waived. The board agreed to waive all fees, but the 2020 concert series didn't happen and because they were canceled. And so in the packet, his request is that he still be allowed to move forward with the 2021 series without paying any fees based on the 2020 approval by the board.
Well, I respectfully disagree with not charging fees. We did not charge him a fee for a time he didn't perform, is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay. Mayor, I move that we do not, that we charge fees for the use of the park.
Okay, so would you like to, maybe we should take that out of the consent agenda and then
That's
put it
fine.
on the regular agenda?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, so we will discuss that after we finish with the consent agenda. Any other questions or concerns on the 2 items remaining on the consent agenda? All right, seeing none. Anything from the public? All right, seeing none. Did I get a motion, Amanda? No. All right.
I move that we approve the consent agenda, the modified consent agenda, removing the Pick in the Park and for approval.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, that motion passes. All right, then let's take up the special event permit for Pickin' Productions.
Mayor, I would move that we approve Picking in the Park production this year, but that we also charge our regularly scheduled fees.
Okay, do I have a second on that? All right, seeing none, that motion fails for a second. Would someone else like to make another motion? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve the request by Rob Miller for Picking in the Park for this year.
Do I hear a second on that?
Second.
All right, discussion. Go, Dave.
Madam Mayor, if I remember correctly, he came in, and correct me if I'm wrong, he came in saying that he wanted to give us sponsorship. In other words, we would have some headline stuff in there as the town of Paonia sponsoring in return for waiving of the fees. So we don't have any actual out-of-pocket. We do have a lower amount of revenues, and that's the deal that we approved back in 2020. If I remember correctly, I may be wrong, but I felt like that was nice for the town as a community effort to headline that Pick in the Park. It's a huge thing for people within the town and people that are our neighbors that live outside of the city limits. And it's a really nice community event, so I like to see the town of Paonia as being a sponsor, and I thought that was a reasonable way to be able to do it. So that's why I made the motion.
Okay, Bill?
Yes, I think that there are fees associated with that. We charge fees on a regular schedule for different events, and I don't know why we would give favoritism to a certain client that wants to give us recognition. We still have costs associated with the use of that park, and I think we should charge fees for it just like we do everybody else.
Thank you, Bill. Other? Yes, Michelle.
I would like to see us develop a consistent policy on how to handle this type of request, because I would love to help businesses in the community, members of the community. I think this is a great event for the community. It's offered for free for people to attend, but I think it's for us to pick and choose feels a little unfair, and I would like to see us have a policy to say either, we have one fee schedule for events that are free to the public versus a different fee schedule for events where they're actually charging admission, or nonprofits versus for-profits, something, I think we could develop a policy to make this work and still be able to help our local businesses.
Thank you, Michelle. Any other comments? Yes, Tammy.
It seems to me I think this should be a one-time thing in light of COVID, to be determined, like you say, create a policy between now and perhaps next year. One thing I think to consider is that this group does and correct me if I'm wrong, this group does a really good job of policing itself, of cleaning up the park, and of taking care of things. They don't leave a mess. We have walked over to the park many times the morning after the concert to see if we can find any quarters or anything. And it's always been really clean. So I think that's something to take into consideration. It doesn't take a lot of the staff's time. But again, I would like to see this. I agree with Trustee Pattison. I think we need some standard to set in the future.
Any other comments? Okay, seeing none. Who? Where? Oh, I wanted to make my comment before we did the public. And I agree. I think Picken does an incredible job, and that they are free, and that we do collect sales tax because they operate booths, and so we do get some revenue out of all of this. I agree, having a policy would make it much clearer and easier to deal with. And my question is, should this go to GAPS or should it go to Public Works?
Well, I'm going to take a contrarian point of view and tell you that we already have a policy in place. It's in the schedule of fees, so that is our policy. What you're asking is, do you want to change a policy?
Yeah. And if we do that, then I would assume that it would go to a committee and be looked at by a committee. And I don't know if GAPS or Public Works is actually the appropriate committee, since Public Works actually deals with parks and GAPS does not. So I would request that GAPS or Public Works take this up and look at it. Okay. All right. Anything else from the board?
Yes.
Oh, yes, Tammy.
What if both looked at it and compare what we get? Just a thought.
It could be a contest. Yes, Michelle.
I would support that. I think the
Okay.
Public Works Committee could definitely take a better look from an expense perspective and what we actually need to collect to recoup any cost. That GAPS could look at our existing policies and how this fits with how consistent we are across this type of policy.
Okay. Nice compromise. All right. Is there anything else from the board? Turn on.
Is there a motion is on the board?
Yeah, we have a
To
motion.
do a one-time?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, to accept it as it is. All right. If there's nothing else from the board, Suzanne.
Suzanne Watson, 903 2nd Street. So I was reviewing the application, and I noticed that they're going to have vendors present. Why doesn't the farmers market coordinate with Pick in the Park, and they can be there for free? I mean, I remember kind of an excruciating hour, or it was quite a bit of time that the farmers market stood up here, and they were wanting to use the park, and they have to pay. When I'm not against Rob Miller and the free music, I think that's great. But when you start having vendors and people are using the park for profit, I think it's being inconsistent. And I'm wondering if things can be separated out at this point, you know, for people who are actually using the park for the profit. Where are the vendors going to be located? Are you going to let them be on the grass? It's once every week. We're talking about another drought this summer. The Pickin' in the Park, you know, you get dancers and stuff like that, which we can't avoid. But perhaps we can ask the vendors and be consistent, like we did with the farmers market, to use the paved portion of the park or set up along the street to keep extra traffic off off the grass. So I'm wondering if you can't, before you vote on this, separate this out a little bit to talk about how many vendors is he going to have? What type of vendors is this going to be? And I know every year he does have, there is something, but it's pretty nebulous in that application. So just to be fair to the farmers market people, I wanted to bring that up. Thank you.
And point of clarification, the farmers market is having vendors as well. Yes, Ms. Patterson.
Christina Patterson, Price Road. I was wondering if there's anybody else besides Rob that gets the park for free, or even pool this park for free.
If your event is 100 people or more, then you usually are subject to the large park event, and this is the first time that a group has brought the request in several years to the board to waive the fees.
And pool this park as well. Nobody gets that for free.
They do, because the capacity is 80 people or less, so they're under the 100 people.
Thank you.
All right, anything else from the public? Yes, Mr. Bruner.
Bill Brunner, 608 Second. I agree with Bill. You have a policy. It's the fee schedule. And I think this town is carrying on a long tradition of having a problem with standing behind its policies. And I think you should think about the difference between the town board and the Chamber of Commerce. Thank you.
All right, anything else from the public?
We can hear
All right.
everyone that speaks from there, but we can barely hear you, all are muffled.
Well, I'm sorry, we are wearing masks, and we do ask that people wear a mask in this meeting. So
There's no Delta County mandate for masks.
Delta County is under the blue on the state's dial.
I will leave, but just if you would speak up a little bit, because he has a mask on and I could hear everything he was saying. I could hear Suzanne, I could hear them all, but the board members are really muffled. You just have to use your diaphragm.
Thank you. Okay. Anything else from the public? All right, we have a motion and a second. Yes, Dave.
I do have one comment. We did make a deal with them last year. And so if we vote against this, then we're rescinding what we already approved. So, you know, it's kind of a double-edged sword here. I just wanted to point that out, that we made a commitment last year. It couldn't be upheld because of COVID. And so, again, it's a one-time shot. But we had a pretty big discussion about whether to waive those last year, and we thought that it was wise to be a sponsor of it. So.
Okay. Last call for comments. Okay. Ms. Watson.
Thank you. I was wondering if you do charge a fee, it's not necessarily Rob Miller that pays it, but perhaps it's the vendors, just as with the farmers market. You know, it's transferred on to the people who are actually using the park for profit. So please consider that. Thanks.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that motion carries. All right. Let's move on to new business. Oh, Tammy, I'm sorry.
I move that the vendors of the Pickin' in the Park be required to function, to set up on the concrete, just as we have required the farmer's market to do.
Can we do this, Bo, or do we need to agendize
We
it?
would need to amend the agenda to add that as a discussion item. Certainly, there could be direction. I don't know that it's necessarily pressing for tonight's
Right.
meeting, but this was included as part of the consent agenda.
Then I take my motion back, and I move that we make this part of, on the next agenda
Okay.
for discussion,
Okay.
possible action.
All right. All in favor? Oh, wait.
I have a
Michelle?
comment.
Yes.
I wonder if we could expand that to our policies regarding use of the grassy area versus the pavement more generally.
So would you like to amend the motion?
I would like to amend the motion to make this a more general discussion about how we require organizations to use various areas of the park.
Okay, do I have a second on that amendment?
Second.
Any more discussion on the amendment? Yes,
Could
Amanda.
I have her repeat her motion?
I'm sorry,
Could
what?
I have her repeat her motion?
I can try. I amend the motion to broaden the discussion to how we require organizations to use various areas of the park. I think that's what I said.
Yeah, pretty close. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Did you have a
I,
comment?
I would like the motion repeated before we vote.
Okay, all right. The amendment to the main motion is to expand the discussion to include vendors in general and their use of the grass versus the concrete. That's the amendment that we're voting on. All right, all in favor of that?
Aye.
Opposed?
Nay.
All right, now, yeah, exactly. So back to the main motion, which was to bring this to the next meeting and make it a more general discussion. Is everybody clear on that? You got it? Okay.
Well, I believe I said that we discussed requiring the, what is it called? Yeah, the pick.
Yeah.
That we require the vendors to use the concrete, that we discuss requiring them to use the concrete. That was my motion.
Okay. All right. Everyone clear on that?
Yep.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? All right, that motion carries. Okay, moving on to new business, Mattingly Clark and variance application. Lynn?
So this is a variance to allow a 0.5% greater slope on a cul-de-sac at the end of the south end of South Clark. The subdivision has already been approved with a reduced density, and then when the engineer did the rest of the work, we discovered that town sewer and water, which had gone in 3-4 years ago, to have the cul-de-sac built, we require a little bit more to honor the overburden that's needed on the new sewer and water lines that were put through. So this is just a variance for the cul-de-sac slope.
Okay, thank you. All right, questions for Lynn from the board? Yes, Michelle.
I have a question, but not specifically for Lynn. This would be more for Attorney Nerlin, I
Sure.
believe. We had a comment from the public on a different section of our code that might apply to this process. And I'm not seeing a big difference in terms of how we move forward tonight, but I'm wondering if we need some clarification on which is appropriate going forward. So we had the section in code, I want to say it was chapter 17, the flood section that talked about the variances, and then we had, in a comment from the public, the section on exceptions that the Planning Commission can grant in section 17-150.
So again, with the caveat that I try not to provide legal advice in an open meeting, I think that the process that's been chosen by the applicant is appropriate. She's looking for a variance here after we've already approved the subdivision. I think that the distinguishing thing here is that you already have the approval in place versus kind of an issue where you'd be going to the Planning Commission and looking for the evaluation, whereas, as the trustees know, we've already received the Planning Commission and then the board approval.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other questions for Lynn? Okay, seeing nothing from the public, or from the board, is there anything from the public? on this issue? Okay, seeing none from the public, can we have a motion?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to move that we approve the variance as submitted.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? All right, that motion passes. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I'm a question because in the minutes, I noticed that Commissioner Hunt, I think it's Hunter, is saying that she has too many conflicts with projects. It sounds like we're going to need to make an appointment to that commission.
You know, I had a discussion with Ms. Hunter about that, and she would really like to stay on the board because she wants to be part of the master planning process. And that is what is next up on our agenda, is looking at the master plan. And so she is not ready to resign as of yet.
So do we have options? Is it good to appoint an additional member to make it easier for voting? Or I just don't know. I saw that as an issue and I wanted to at least bring it up.
I believe the planning commission is full, and that's all we have is the people who are on the planning commission, and that the seats are all full. Okay. All right, moving on. So we're not on an agenda item, so we're not going to take anything on this. We're going to move forward. Ms. Watson, unless you are recognized by the chair, you are not allowed to speak. If you speak out of turn again, I will have you removed from this room. Do you understand me? You don't have to be rude to me. Ms. Watson, get your behavior under control. All right. Would you please call the police? You may be removed as well, Mr. Bruner. That's 2. That's 3. No. Ms. Watson and Mr. Bruner. I am requesting that Ms. Watson and Mr. Bruner be removed from this meeting for disorderly conduct. Yep. That according to resolution 2710, you are not allowed to speak unless you are recognized by the chair. You were not recognized by the chair. And you spoke again after you were not recognized by the chair and were warned not to do so. That you spoke again even after you were warned not to do so. You were causing a disruption, and I have the right to have you removed according to resolution 2710. Ms. Watson, you are out of order. You will either leave voluntarily or the officer will remove you involuntarily. Your choice. All right, I'm going to adjourn this meeting until we resolve this issue. Can I?
Yeah, why don't you take
Yes,
a motion
let's
to
do
adjourn?
it. Can I get a motion to adjourn or break? Yeah.
Mayor, I move that we take a 15-minute break.
All right. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, we are
I'd be happy to start the discussion process, Mayor. So we were directed to put together a draft ordinance that created the Board of Appeals. The suggestion that was provided to us that it would be a joint board, or us, or legal department, which I guess is me, that it would be a joint board with respect to the Board of Adjustment and Board of Appeals, and that the parties that would serving would be kind of wearing that dual role, with the thought being that, one, to assist with kind of filling that board, and then two, if there was any sort of training or carryover, and then three, if there was somebody that had some localized knowledge or specific knowledge to the industry, could serve in that role. So included in your packet is a draft kind of red line of ordinance introducing this Board of Adjustment. Did I say Board of Adjustment? Yeah. Board of Appeals.
okay. But it's combined, adjustments and appeals,
Yeah,
correct?
and frankly, that's the direction of the trustees. So if you guys felt like you didn't want to go down that road, I mean, I certainly feel like there's benefits and you know, there's pro cons to each side of that aspect. But the initial direction that we were given was to do the joint service role.
Okay. All right. Discussion from the board. Questions, comments? Stanley.
Can you explain like the fundamental difference between a Board of Appeals and a Board of Adjustments?
So the appeals board would be looking at building code appeals, and then the Board of Adjustment would be looking at zoning.
Yes, Dave.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was curious about making sure in our administrative packets that the right to appeal would be on building applications, on building, permits, those type of things, that we would line any kind of forms that people have regarding zoning and anything that they could appeal, that the right to appeal is at least listed on those forms.
Ah, okay. But the right to appeal, at least in my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that if the building inspector comes out and says you need to build a firewall, then it can be taken, and the person disagrees, then they can take it to the Board of Appeals, correct?
Yeah, I think to Dave's point, we would want to, I think it's a fair point, but I don't know it's necessarily something that we'd want to incorporate in the ordinance. Yeah, so.
Okay, other comments, discussion from the board? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I've got a couple of comments, and I don't know that we would address them with the ordinance, but should probably note some changes that we'll need to make. We still have sections in our town code that reference an energy board of appeals, and there's another section that talks about the previous planning and zoning commission is still listed in the code in chapter 15. So we've got some cleanup work that we need to do to make sure that we're consistent across all of that. In addition, when we get back to reviewing the building building code update and possible adoption of the 2018 code. There is a section in the first chapter of that that talks specifically about the Board of Appeals. So I think we'll have to make a note that we're amending that section and replacing it with this version.
All right, other comments from the board? Go ahead.
So on section, let's see, I'm looking at packet page 103, section 181110, section A, and it talks about 4 members when I believe our code specifies 5 members, and our code also specifies in chapter 18 that one of those members should be the building inspector. So I don't know how we want to address that, or if we're changing that. Sorry, so on the ordinance, I'm on section 181110, section A.
Ah, okay,
and
thank
it says the 4 members of the zoning board of adjustment. But in our current Municode, town code, section 2820 says that the zoning board of adjustment has 5 members. And then in town code chapter 18, 430, it says that those 5 members of an appeals board would also include the building inspector. So we just have some inconsistency across that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and sorry, yeah, and the reason was, I think it just needs clarification on that we just didn't envision that there would be the building official on this Board of Appeals, because there is an appeal of that decision. So maybe it's just a sentence that clarifies the reason that there's that omission.
Okay, and then probably a fix in our code so that it doesn't say that we're including the building inspector, maybe? Okay, so an administrative change too, I think. And then there's no guidance in our code on how the members would be selected, but the IBC does provide guidance on their suggested qualifications for a Board of Appeals. That's in Appendix B of the IBC, both our current version and the 2018 version. I don't think we can meet the qualifications that they suggest, but I think it would be nice if we could include that we will take that under consideration or use that as guidance when the board is making appointments.
Yeah, so preference given to, but not
Correct,
required.
to anyone who would meet the qualifications as described in Appendix B.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, but I
Okay,
don't want to
go for it.
monopolize. Okay. On packet page 104.
Packet page or?
Packet page 104. And this is section 181130 under fees.
Okay.
Okay. The GAPS committee suggested that we might consider waiving the fee if the Board of Appeals finds in favor of the applicant, because we may have a situation where an applicant is coming before the Board of Appeals to appeal a fee itself, and if we're making them pay a fee to appeal a fee, that seems a little backwards.
Right. Right. Okay. Keep going.
That's all I have.
Okay. Anything else from anyone? Yes, Dave.
One high-level thing, we had a citizen thing about whether people from out of town can serve on this board, and we have that same problem with the Personnel Committee right now, that and in the Water Board. And we might want to have gaps or someone develop, because I think that it's really healthy for the town to tap the expertise of the citizens that are in the North Fork area, rather than always restricting just to town. So I just wanted to bring that point up.
Okay. Anyone else? All right, seeing none. Anything from the public? Yes, Ms. Fennell. Okay. Make sure you turn on the microphone. State your name and address. The big blue or gray talk button on the front. Yeah.
There we go. Okay. I'm glad we're finally addressing the Board of Appeals. It's been a long time coming for me. I wanted to go through, I've noticed that you had the goals set for the town and what the government and everything, was trying to do and have it be a positive outcome for the whole community. And what what I wanted to get to was the neighborhood pride projects, and I started looking through it, and all just kind of came together with the Board of Appeals and the building inspector, and everything came together as one. I really feel like a lot of the neighbors would clean up their homes and do more to their homes if they weren't under such scrutiny and such high kind of levels of codes and regulations and things that costed so much money. I just think that we need to also, with the Board of Appeals, get together with some of the builders and with Corinne and some of the trustees to understand what things we're going to have exempt, because we talked about exceptions, and we haven't done that yet either. And since the Board of Appeals has taken so long to get going, I just think that we need to do that hand in hand, so that when we do the information and we do all the paperwork and we get everything organized to hand out to people, that they know what is exempt and what's not. And I just feel like we just need to get together. I know there's a lot going on with everybody, but it kind of goes hand in hand. So I'd like to address that. And since we already have that on our goals and our objectives, I think that we would, also address objective 3, which is resist temptation to be disturbed or disrupted during meetings with other stuff if we address it all at once. The other thing is, let's see, to continue the trust between the board and between the government. I think this is a really good thing to get the community involved and go out there. I don't think the pie that you did, Mary, was it just wasn't as
Okay, I think we're getting a little off topic here,
I know,
Chia,
but
so let's bring it back
I
to the
don't
Board
want
of
to, I
Appeals.
don't want to like mislead people with who's, really trusting in the town and with the inspector and everything, because I just think it's misleading. It looks like 100% of the people, that 63 or 61% were satisfied, and there really wasn't. There was only 41%.
Again, let's get back to the stats later on the agenda.
I think we should do a new pie. I think we should make it, say, up top 40%, and then go from there. And that will build the trust. Because
So are we talking about the Board of Appeals? Because that is what the agenda item is.
The Board of Appeals goes hand in hand with all of this. Because there's a lot of people that have come to me and said, we would love to do our homes and make them nicer, but we cannot afford it. We cannot go under the scrutiny of the inspector. And a lot of people weren't satisfied.
Okay.
And we only were taking 40% or so.
All right.
That's why I brought it up, Mary.
I'm
not trying to cause trouble.
No, that is later on the agenda. If you want to address that, we can address that at that point.
All right. And then I wanted to go into the 4 buckets. It talks about administration, development, operations, and services, amenities. I think we should offer that service for sure, to go into, again, what's expected of people when they want to fix up their homes, and go in with the Board of Appeals with the exceptions. We have to get both going hand in hand, I think. And that's my biggest concern, is we're going to be hitting one thing and missing a whole other thing. We have to bring the exceptions up with it all. And then it's all done. We don't have to go back and forth. We don't have to waste any more time in the meetings and have a bunch of people, up and back and forth. So that's what I wanted to bring to your attention.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the public? Yes, Ms. Smith. Yes, that's you.
Paige Smith, 215 Delta Avenue. And when Trustee Pattison was bringing up the places in the ordinance where there is already a Board of Appeals, I didn't know if she had mentioned Section 18.7-240, where there is an appeal board. So my recommendation is to step back and do a holistic look at these chapters where you have a Board of Appeals and an appeal board and this proposed ordinance, and be sure that you're not contradicting. Because right now there is a contradiction in Section 18.4-32 regarding the requirements of the people on the Board of Appeals, which they have to have construction. So again, as I usually bring up these technical administrative things, I think you have some cross purposes going on right now that need to be revised. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anything else from the public? All right, seeing none. Are we taking action on this tonight, or are we just...
I think we just want to introduce it tonight.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, if there's nothing else, then let's move on to the 300 block of Poplar Avenue street closure request. Ms. Hack.
Hi. I hope you all Googled Play Street and found out that it's a huge movement, especially this time of COVID. So if anybody has any more questions.
Okay.
Oh, Dave. Oh,
All right.
sorry.
I'm confused about who's the chair.
Right. Dave.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was curious if any of the neighbors in the block had refused to sign or were against this.
Oh, no, everyone signed. Everyone that owns a house. In fact, 3 of the houses with no children were more excited than some of the others and offering to buy signs and whatnot. So no, I wouldn't have brought this before you without full support from the block.
Thank you.
Other question for Barb? Yes, Bill.
Well, just to clarify, this is everybody on that block?
Yes, every house. There's one house that's owned by, there's one fellow that owns 2 houses on the block, and he was quite excited because his renters have 2 of the children. And then the other one was Terry Briggs, who owns the house that Sonny lives in. And Sonny lives most of her time in the back of the house, and I don't really see any problem with that.
Now, do you expect the town to block that off every?
No, one of the neighbors will do that. We'll figure out what the town would like us to do, whether it be sawhorses. There's signs that you can get at a pretty low cost that say not a through street. So it would only be up for those, it's not even 48 hours.
Well, one of the concerns I had was, I understand the need for this, but the length of time. You know, you're asking basically from Saturday morning all the way to Sunday evening. That's quite a while to block off the street. I realize that it doesn't affect people, the homeowners on there, just the through traffic.
During the week, we might get more traffic just because people dropping off kids for school. But, no, I mean, are we gonna say, okay, at 1 o'clock with a 5-year-old, you gotta go back and sit on the grass? So it was easier if we told them, or it was done from morning to dusk for 2 days. I mean, the weekends, that's when a lot of the parents are home and out playing with the kids. A lot of them have the remote control cars. So what we've done before is just put soup cans out and give them a solemn course, but of course someone has to be ready there to slow down a car.
Yes, Mick.
I understand from your narrative that there will typically be adults at the entrance of those streets?
No, that's the way we've been doing it. And the adults that are been not blocking the street, just ready to yell for the kids, are ones without children. So no, what we do is probably put up sawhorses. And quite a few of the people park in the alley, so they wouldn't even be using the street.
Okay, other questions? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, just a couple questions on logistics. For people who are parked on the street, would they be asked to move prior to the closure, or would you just move the sawhorses if they need to come in and out?
No, they live on the street. They have the right to park there. This is just closing the street for through traffic.
Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
so no.
Okay. And then my only other comment is that I think it's a great idea. I think there is potential to cause maybe minor traffic issues or parking issues on neighboring streets. I would love to approve it for a few weeks, see if if staff gets any negative feedback before going for the entire summer.
Okay. All right, any other comments? Yes, Dave.
You know, I like the concept of play streets, and I'm wondering, rather than a banner that says no through traffic, actually publicizing street closed, this is a play street from these times, so that the public's aware, and it also publicizes the idea of play streets instead of
You know,
just
I
this
thought
regulatory.
about that, Dave, and I thought, oh, maybe the DCI would even be interested in putting in a little article on it. Because it's just not the 6 kids on our street. There's 2 kids on the next block over that are here every weekend that are preschool and kindergarten. And then like one house, the pink house, her driveway's on 3rd, but I didn't realize she has a granddaughter that goes to school with 2 of our neighborhood kids, and they all play together. So I think it has the potential of bringing in a lot more than just 6 kids.
Okay, any other comments, questions? Yes, Tammy.
Is getting a general liability insurance policy an issue, or is that something you've already looked into?
No, didn't look into it. I figured that's something the town would have to look into, but I don't understand why you couldn't treat the street as the same as a sidewalk. So, no. I don't think other towns do that.
Is that an issue for the town, Corinne?
You know, I think we would want to just confirm with CIRSA, but it should be under our general liability policy.
Okay.
I thought you were going to do that before tonight's meeting. Okay, never mind. Thanks so much. Any more questions?
Well, hold on. You're not done yet, Barb. Almost. So my question is, so is this just going to run dawn to dusk, or are you going to have the street closed off overnight too?
Well, unless someone wants to move all the sawhorses, no, I would run it from early morning on Saturday to Sunday night.
Okay.
Yeah. Very little traffic. But if there is traffic, it seems to be... Okay, my feminism is coming out. Young men in big pickup trucks that want to go fast. So sorry about that, but yes. That like to peel out and whatnot, and I think it would just be safer if we just kept them up for 36 hours or whatever it is.
Okay. All right. Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, just for safety, if the sawhorses are going to be up overnight, could there be reflectors or something added to make them a little more visible to cross-street traffic?
Oh yeah, one of the neighbors without kids even wanted to get a solar sign that flashed, but no, we were looking at sawhorses that had reflector tape and then a sign.
Okay. All right.
Thanks.
Anything else from the board? Okay. Anything from the public? Yes.
Thomas Markle, 302 2nd Street. It looks like Poplar, the 300 block of Poplar is 2 blocks from Town Park. It seems like that might be a more convenient allocation of resources for kids to play. Other than that, I think it's really cool, and I hope we can do the same thing for Onarga, because we also have the same guys in diesel trucks peeling out.
No.
They come down O Road and stomp down, blowing smoke. So yeah, if we could like have entire corridors of town shut down for the weekend, that would be amazing. I'd love it. Thanks.
All right, thank you, Thomas. Yes, Barb.
The children that we have on our street are 1 year old, 1 year old, 2 4-year-olds, a 5-year-old, and then one up to 3rd grade. They are too young to go to the park alone. Their parents are out with them, but the parents also know, since we have a potluck dinner on our street, they know us all real well and feel comfortable about, let's say, Mike and Randy are sitting out on the grass in an old rocking chair because they're old men, and let the kids just play. So it's because of the young age. I would guess that in another 3-4 years, it wouldn't be necessary, but maybe move it to another block where there's very young children on it. And there's no place to ride a bike. Well, I guess they could in the park, but I just noticed this because there were 3 of them trying to learn how to ride bikes, and parents had to keep moving them off instead of giving them that push to take off. Thanks.
All right. If there is nothing else, can I get a motion? Yes, Michelle.
Yeah, I'd like to move that we approve the proposed Play Street for the month of July, and bring it back before the board in August to review the effectiveness, make sure everything goes well before we approve it beyond that. And I'll do a second motion separately. Sorry.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wait, yes. We had discussion, Dave.
We had asked not to close the street on the 4th of July weekend because everyone parks, and we're more interested in starting this now than waiting 2 months on it. So that's just my comment.
Okay, Michelle?
Okay, I'll amend my motion. From the application, I understood that it was a July start date. If the interest is an immediate start date, let's see, where are we? May 11th. I would move that we approve it until our first meeting in June, at which time we review how it's going and revisit. So that's a
Well,
month.
that's almost 4 weeks, yeah.
Right. So that's a month. And then we revisit it as a board, see if there have been any issues from a staff perspective before we do the rest of the summer.
Okay. Can I get a second on that?
Second.
Very reluctant. So we have an amended motion to approve this beginning now until the first meeting in June, correct? So that's about 4 weeks. All right. Yes, Bill.
Well, this certainly gives us a chance to test it. Also gives a chance for the public to react to it. If somebody has an objection, they can come in and make their objections known. If nobody makes the objections, we certainly have the ability to approve it for an extended period of time. So I think it gives you what you need, Barb, and it also leaves the door open for people that do object to it. So I'd be very happy with that.
Okay. All right. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Mayor Backron, I believe
Yes.
Tammy had another comment.
Who? Where? Oh, Tammy? I'm sorry,
Yeah,
you
I'm
need
just
to
cons-
raise your hand a little higher or
Okay.
put it out.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
I'm just concerned, the date of requested street closure is July through September. So,
Then that was a mistake on Amanda.
oh, okay. So, so is it too late to ask when you would like to start? I mean, we're just assuming
Well,
she
we
wants to
still
start
have
now.
to, I just did this as a friendly neighborhood grandma. And we still have to find someone with sawhorses. We still have to make sure they're reflective. I have to order signs. So, I would really like to see this go through to the 1st of July, not the 1st of June, because that's only a couple weeks. So I'm sorry. It's just, I think it's so new that some people just don't understand that, how this is a worldwide movement, and all big cities are doing this now.
Okay. All right, Tammy.
So can you clarify, when would you like to start this? We kind of need a date.
Okay.
I think.
Well, not this weekend, because I don't think I can find the sawhorses, get reflector tape, and do all that, but by the following week. Pardon me?
Next Saturday is May 22nd.
Whew, okay.
So we have a motion and a second on the table. So we can just rescind the motion entirely and make a new motion. Or we can amend the motion again.
Prior to the first weekend, and following those 4 weekends, bring this back to the board for review.
Okay. Can I get a second on that? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, Bob, just let us know when it's going to happen. Yeah, Michelle?
Thank you so much. Because the next time, if everyone was going to say no, I was bringing all the kids to a meeting.
That would be good.
Yes, Michelle.
Sorry, I do have a second motion. I just wanted to
Okay.
get in before we move
Sure.
forward. So my second motion is that when this comes back before the board, I would also like us to review a potential policy related to this type of street closure so that we can be consistent and fair across the town.
Okay. All right, can I get a second on that motion?
Second.
Any discussion? Sure.
I would like to have, when this comes back before the board, a consistent policy that the board can review to make sure that we're applying this type of street closure fairly across town.
Yes, Dave.
Sounds like an assignment for the GAPS committee.
Yes, it does. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right, let's move on to the DMEA franchise agreement. And we have someone here from DMEA. Would you like to address the board?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Jim Hennigan, DMEA. I'm trying to remember our address.
Oh.
I believe it's 11925 6300 Road, Montrose, Colorado. I'm here to answer any questions that the board may have. I know from legal counsel at DMEA that the town's legal counsel has reviewed the franchise agreement, but if questions come up or are available today, I'd be happy to try and answer them.
Okay, do we have questions? Yes, Bill.
In the recent past, we've had quite a discussion on section 1.7 gross revenues, and it says in here that it's going to be for the gross sale and delivery of electricity in the town, and the fact that you include the franchise fee in your gross sales, and therefore the city applied the sales tax to it. How do you address that?
I can answer that question, or I don't know if your legal counsel wants to. Okay. So the method we use to collect the franchise fee, and then when taxes are applied, that is the approved method by the state. That's the method we follow. So I don't know if the council's aware of
Well,
that.
if the town applied, instead of a 3% gross sales on the sale of electricity, we applied a flat fee, would that also be considered applicable for sales tax?
So my understanding is the definition of the fee makes it be part of the total that is subjected to the sales tax.
Well, that's where I have a fundamental problem with the whole thing. I don't think that we should be setting a fee. We should be paying a tax on a fee that we're required to pay. I think it's simply a matter of moving it to the other side of your formula. So that's one objection. The second one is, how do you handle sale of net metering and electricity that's sold that particular way? How do you address that?
Can you help me out and be a little more specific?
Well, there's the net metering that goes on. I assume some of it goes on in Paonia.
Correct.
You have people that are producing electricity and transporting it to who knows where. When they do that, they lower the cost of their own electricity. Okay. It seems like they also avoid paying the appropriate franchise fee on that, and that they're now a producer of electricity, and so it doesn't seem fair that they're escaping some of their franchise fee doing that.
So net metering is dictated again by the state. It's referred to as retail net metering. So if a kilowatt hour, the measure that we bill electricity in, if it is exported out to the grid and then later consumed at that same meter, that is given retail value. And then when it's put out on the grid, and then when it's consumed, even though this is done automatically by the meter, effectively, that credit that effectively was given by the meter rolling backwards is then used when electricity is consumed. And that's a requirement by the state.
Yeah,
so the bill for a net metered account would show net consumption.
Yeah, but their electricity they produce doesn't necessarily mean that they consume it. It goes to somebody else. May not go to somebody in the town. It may go somewhere else.
Yeah, that would be unlikely, but it could, let's say hypothetically, go somewhere outside of the town. But either way, we are required to give them retail value for the kilowatt hour that's put out onto the grid.
Again, my objection is to that is that it should be on the other side of the equation for figuring sales tax. But that's my comments on the franchise fee.
Okay, other comments or questions? Yes, Dave.
Thanks for coming.
Sure.
I'm talking about Article 5.1. It says change the franchise fee. And I was curious about what might happen with inflation because I didn't read anything in there if there's an inflation happening. It just said that the franchise fees will be pretty much at the same amount, but not adjusted for inflation. And that could really hurt the town later on if that clause stays the same. So that's just one question I have about that.
Yeah, so again, if your legal counsel wants to comment, my comment is that the fee is effectively set by the town, and the provision is effectively what was in effect in this agreement that's in place now, and the goal is to leave it that way.
So, yeah, just to piggyback on that a little bit, you guys have the ability to set the franchise fee as the trustees. It's a balance that you want to pay attention to in terms of what you anticipate the impact on the town infrastructure will be with respect to allowing for this utility versus the pass-through to the consumer in terms of the amount that's charged. And certainly with that, you do need to pay attention to not just now, but 10 years from now, 20 years from now, based on the term.
So this gives us the ability to be able to increase that if we find that it's deficient.
I'd like to make one comment to Dave's. The fee of 3% is fixed on is charged against the sale of electricity. The inflation adjustment comes in the sale of electricity. They're going to jack the rates up and pay a higher.
Thanks, Bill.
Other comments, questions? Michelle?
For Attorney Nerlin, any concerns or issues that we should be aware of from your perspective with this contract?
No, I mean, we've reviewed it, kind of gone through this process at length with Jim on behalf of another municipality, and this is kind of what we felt like was agreeable between DMEA and Crawford, and kind of applying some of those same concerns that they've addressed. The one issue that Bill hit upon, I would have to echo what Jim has indicated with respect to that being the standard method of collection throughout the state. To the extent that the trustees did want to pursue an alternative method, frankly, it looks like you would need to do a modification of your revenue collection under Chapter 4 in order to kind of meet that. It's not to say that we couldn't do that, but that would put a pause in this situation. We did have Fruta, I believe, that has a similar kind of method of calculation that was brought to the board's attention by Trustee Watson. I'm not familiar of a ton of other jurisdictions, frankly, that follow that calculation. Usually, I think, and Jim can weigh in on this, just based on the method that's used by calculating and collection from the state, that frankly is the preferred method. But to the extent that you guys wanted to look at an alternative, we could do that. This franchise agreement's up in July, so we would need to be pretty proactive with respect to if we're looking at a change to the code on the calculation.
So I noticed the term is 20 years. Is that the same as our current contract?
Yeah, Bo, actually the existing one is a 20-year term. So we just stuck with the same term as the one that's in existence now. And that's, I will say, a pretty standard term if you look in our region.
And I'm sorry, go ahead, Dave.
No, is same subject or different? Okay. I'm talking about 8.4 relocation of company facilities. And if I'm reading that right, if there's a public project, it's at DMEA's responsibility to undergo the top costs of relocating the electric when that public project happens. So if there's a street change or something like that, how does that apply to bike paths, trails, or dark skies if those are considered public projects?
That's a good question. The public project is determined by the right-of-way, the public right-of-way it exists in for the movement of facilities. So in the case of, I guess I'd have to give you a case-by-case analysis, but generally, in the case of, say, a bike path, that if it were to be located in as a new right-of-way, then that would, in my view, that would not be part of a public project. In dark skies it's an aesthetic thing, and it wouldn't fall under the guise of a public project. So it would be something that would be moved at the expense of the town.
What about pedestrian safety in a, like say we wanted to put new crosswalks on Grand Avenue and we needed electric relocated in order to put low intensity lighting to light those. Who would pay for that? In a right of way.
So I guess I'm trying to figure. So you want to put a crosswalk in and it would require moving the electrical infrastructure?
Well, I'm just hypothetically throwing out things like, I'm just trying to understand when it's your cost and when it's our cost on public projects, when poles or undergrounding has to be done.
So maybe turn to section, I think it's 1.10, and there's a definition of public project. Does that help?
It does. It's just we're having a major master plan. We're looking at trails and all those kind of things, and I just wanted to get clear about how this impacts that. Thank you.
Okay.
Do you have another question, Michelle?
Just a comment going back to the franchise fee that we had talked about. I was looking at packet page 119 at the very top of that, it's 4.1 section D. The way I read that, any dispute over the accuracy of how the franchise fee is calculated should really be between the customer and DMEA, or if it's based on a state calculation, possibly between the customer and the state. And we're saying that we're not attesting that that is an accurate way to calculate. So I think that kind of, I mean, I hate to pass the buck on this, but it seems to me that that kind of takes us out of the equation in terms of the franchise fee.
Okay, other questions, comments? All right, seeing none, anything from the public? Yes, Ms. Smith.
Paige Smith, 215 Delta Avenue. And this is probably something I should sign up on the table, but I'd be really curious to see the statute you just referenced where the state says that you can charge a tax on a tax, because the franchise fee is 3% of gross revenues, but we're being taxed, and I also have solar panels, and I am paying the franchise fee. But exactly what Bear trustee was saying is the state taxes are decided, the franchise fee is being added in to what we pay for electricity, then the taxes are being taken out. And so the point is, why are we being taxed on a tax? So I would love to have that statute that you just referenced, that the state has approved taxing a tax. So I'll write that.
Yeah, that would be very good. Thank you.
So we could see that statute. Thank you.
Yes, that would be very good. All right. Tom, oh, yes.
I certainly can't come up with the statute off the top of my head, but I did text our legal counsel to see if by chance she has it, and if so, we can provide it to you.
Oh,
I
great.
think in
Thank you.
short, it might be good to say that we follow what the law is, and my understanding is, if I think as your legal counsel has told you, if you want to change that, the town has to make that request and make that change.
And I'm not familiar with anything offhand statutorily. Certainly that can be something that we include with the packet when this is up for next reading. We need to do our own, as great as Michelle is for DMEA's legal counsel, we need to do our own independent analysis on that. Not you, sorry. Michelle, Tom. But notwithstanding that, there is some case law that supports that method of collection that was previously shared with the trustees.
And that is the response I received from legal counsel. So I may have misspoke if I said it's statute. That's probably not accurate. It is case law, is what's
so
determined.
put down case law, Paige.
Anything else, I'm happy to stand and take more questions if so.
Okay, well, we have one question from Thomas.
Well, it's kind of the same topic, but it's a different portion of it. It was course, it all just jumped out of the way. Section 4, I think it was D, where they were talking about the calculation of the franchise fee. Says gross revenue based on the sales of electricity, and the state form D100 for calculating sales tax starts from gross sales of goods. And so I mean, unless there are two definitions of gross sales, like, it just doesn't make any sense. Like, there may be other places where they're doing it this way, and like it may have been determined, but the determination sounds like it doesn't make it like it should be challenged because it's inaccurate. If both things are being calculated based on gross sales, then one cannot be, by definition, included in the other. So I don't know if maybe the language of our agreement matches exactly with everything else, like other areas, but I mean, just based on what the words mean, that calculation is inaccurate.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to preface my response by saying I'm not an attorney. But my understanding is, in this case, for utilities, when they think of gross sales, it's the gross sales of all things included. The electricity and fees have a different legal definition than taxes. So fees get included in the gross sales. That's my understanding. So that when the franchise fee is included as part of all gross sales, that becomes the total that the tax is based on.
Okay. Sure, Bill.
Pardon?
Have you finished your comment?
Yes, I have. Thank you.
Well, okay, so my understanding of sales tax is charged on goods that you buy and sell. You're charging a fee for delivering it. It's kind of a splitting of it. And that's the part that I think that some of us object to, is the fact that we're paying a tax on a service. And sales tax is normally calculated on the sale of goods. Your electricity you sell, we pay a tax on that. And you have the right to charge the 3% as a franchise fee. The part that we, as the residents of the town of Paonia, some of us do, is the fact that we have to pay sales tax on the additional franchise fee. And it's simply a matter of moving your sales tax calculation from one side of the equation to the other side of the equation. It costs the town very little money, but it's the appearance of it that we're paying taxes on something more than goods.
Okay. Yes, Karen.
There's also use tax. I know that there is sales tax charged on rentals, and a lot of people would say, but I'm not buying anything, I'm just using it for a while. There is a use tax, and perhaps the franchise fee falls in that kind of a thing. That's there for the use of our space in here. So if the state has deemed that is taxable, I don't think that we're going to get around it.
Well, obviously, the DME representative here tonight is not the person to answer the questions. I mean, I really admit that. You're probably not the right guy. You're the guy on the gun site, though, so but you can carry our concerns back to your company.
Yeah, we're aware of your concerns, and we did, as a result of the concerns being expressed, research this, and our direction is to continue to follow the case law. So that's our legal direction. Okay?
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I understand your position. It's not okay, but I understand it.
Okay.
Okay. Any other discussion? Yes.
Yeah, I essentially agree with Trustee Bear. I understand the position of DMEA. I don't necessarily agree with it, but I don't know that it's the board's place to challenge, because what we're saying in our agreement is gross revenue, and if they're calculating gross revenue in an incorrect way, then that's on DMEA to correct rather than the board to correct their methods. But I would love to see the relevant case law or statute or whatever can be provided before we finalize this.
Okay. Does somebody want to make a motion on this? Sure, Michelle.
I don't have a motion. I'm just a little confused. I thought it was discussion tonight and then it was coming back before the board, or are we taking action tonight?
Because it's a franchise agreement, it needs a first and second reading. So if we could get an introduction this evening, then it would come back for second reading.
So we'd still need a motion to accept.
Motion to introduce the agenda, that would be great.
So we're looking for a motion to introduce the franchise agreement, correct? Okay. Would someone like to make that motion?
Madam Mayor, I move that we introduce the franchise agreement. This would be the first reading.
Okay.
And that we bring it back along with the discussion of the case law that specifies the sales tax.
Okay. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. Thank you very much for your time and patience and texting your lawyer. Yes. He voted aye. All right. Next, let's move on to ordinance 2021 to be determined accessory dwelling units. All right, Nick and Michelle, this is your baby.
Okay, so this is something that the GAPS committee has worked on at the direction of the board. We are at the point where we have a draft ordinance. This was reviewed by, I believe, by the Planning Commission on April 30th, and they made some recommendations. And so now it is back to the board for consideration.
Okay, questions?
Well, I'd like to make a general comment.
Yes, go Bill.
I think that the town already has a method to approve accessory dwelling units. And in fact, the town has in the past, and it's called putting it on for a special review. Anybody can make a request to review an ordinance and have it modified for their particular needs. We don't need an additional ordinance to do that. And we have approved accessory dwelling units in the past through special review. I think that the fact that we want to have an ADU approval effectively takes all of our R1 district in the town and turns it into an R2 district. And the neighbors that are involved in this, it removes their ability to protest. And I think that is a vital for the citizens to be able to come in and say no to something. And thirdly, maybe third, I don't know where I'm at, but any, 2B. I think that any action on ADU should be put on hold until we have actually reviewed our JDS hydro and we got clarification on what's available for sale as far as water is concerned. So that's my comments on it.
Okay, other comments or questions from the board? Yes, Dave.
I just wanted to agree with Trustee Bear that from the very beginning, I think we've had discussions that we don't want this to be viewed as an end run around the moratorium, and I think it's very wise to consider this and look at it. We can discuss it, but I really am reluctant to take any action until the water thing's cleared up.
Okay. All right, other comments, questions? Yes, Tammy.
I hate to parrot everyone, but I'm going to. I think this affects water. This affects our water consumption. It affects a lot of things. And until staff and committees have had a chance to review the JDS hydro report and in light of zoning concerns expressed by citizens, specifically pages 142 and 143 of this packet, I believe we should hold off on consideration of this ordinance.
Okay. Well, we seem to, would someone like to make a motion to table this?
Sure, I'd like to move that we table this item. The other thing is that a person that was really interested in commenting on this was thrown out of the meeting.
Right. Exactly.
I'll second the motion, but I also wanted to ask a question, and this concerns ADUs, but it's a little
Sure.
off the subject.
Go for it.
We have some unapproved ADUs in Peony currently. Are we going to address those at some point in time?
So I think that that's somewhat of a direction that needs to be provided to staff and the building official. I don't want to make an independent determination, and it could be a case-by-case basis in terms of if there's, say, hypothetically a pre-existing non-conforming use, or there's actually something that's perceived to be a ADU, but it's under a different zone district and accordingly kind of within that appropriate use. And so I think it could get speculative, but I think the comment that's been made is pretty fair, and the direction can be to staff and to the building official to follow up on concerns.
Okay, then we'll conclude this particular subject, and I'll make a motion to that effect.
All right. Then we have a motion and a second to table this. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion is tabled. Now, Bill, do yours.
Yes, I would make a motion that the staff look into unapproved ADUs that are currently in place in town, and maybe identify them and see if there's some reason why they exist. I know of one, I believe it was built on a piece of property, didn't have any approval, but I don't know that, and didn't buy a tap, either sewer or water. They're tied on to the homeowners. So I'd just like you guys to take a look at that, and at some point in the future, it doesn't have to be next week, but come back to us with some ideas what we have going on.
Okay, we have a motion to have the staff look into pre-existing ADUs. Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. The next item is the community members' ethics complaint, and I think we should table this until the person bringing the complaint can be in the room.
Mayor?
Yes.
I would move that we table this until such time as the complainant can be in the room. I would also ask that this be put at the first of the agenda so as the meeting devolves. This issue's done.
Okay. Do we have a second?
Second?
All right. Any further discussion? All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
I recuse myself from this vote.
Okay. That motion passes. All right. Mobile retail food establishments. It is another GAPS. You guys are all over the agenda tonight.
So again, this is an issue that the board tasked the GAPS committee with reviewing and bringing back some potential suggestions. So we have language for the board's consideration that could be amended to the code, and that would come back before the board as an ordinance, but we wanted to give the board time to review, discuss before the formal drafting of that.
Okay. Any comments about the food truck resolution? Yes, Tammy.
I definitely want to consider this as an ordinance, but I'm wondering if there would be any consideration of pop-up restaurants, such as those at Adesia, or other means of providing food for sale that within the town that the town may or may not be aware of. Or is that just simply not have anything to do with this? Because I know we do have like little pop-up restaurants.
Right.
So this was specifically, we used a specific definition that we pulled from another community, I believe, that describes what a mobile food establishment is. but I think if the board wished, we could probably expand that definition to include things that aren't necessarily on wheels, but are not permanent in nature.
Okay. All right, other comments? Yes, Karen.
I think that the permanent things is an entirely different thing. I think the mobile, what we're talking about here is the food trucks, basically, or trailers or mobile things. And that, I think they're on, the GAPS is on the right track here. However, the permanent things, the pop-up restaurants, etc., this is a bigger question that I really wish the town would consider, and it's just flat out the registration of businesses in this town altogether, whether they're ADUs, STUs, whatever they are, everything, because we don't even know how many businesses we have in town. They're home office businesses, they're all kinds of businesses. And people say, oh, I don't want to register because you'll tax me. Yes, we will. That's absolutely what we want. You know, maybe it's a registration fee of $20 and that's it, one time, or just to, so that we know if your house burns down, who to contact. I mean, it's just a simple thing, and I don't know any other town that does not have a registration of their businesses.
Thank you. Any other comments? Yes, Michelle.
So we had a suggestion from a community member at our last GAPS committee meeting to potentially consider mobile retail food establishments as special review designation rather than permitted by right in commercial zones. Personally, I think that puts a little too much burden, since they are by nature mobile. If they would have to get a special review every time they move 10 feet down the road, I think that's, I'm not sure how we would reconcile that with our special review process requirements. So I just wanted to add that comment.
Okay. Anything else? Okay. Let's move on then. I'm assuming you don't need anything for this, Michelle?
Some board direction, if
Okay.
if we're moving this to Attorney Nerlin to prepare an ordinance, it would be nice to have board direction for that.
Okay. Would someone like to make a motion to move this on to making an ordinance?
I move that that the GAPS committee review with us with the attorney and move it to the attorney for an ordinance.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that motion carries. All right. Next on the agenda is the mayor's report. So first I would like, I have 2 written reports in there, and then I would also like to report that I have almost completed and will submit by the 14th of this month a CDOT grant for revitalizing main streets to redo the intersection of 5th and Grand for approximately $720,000. So let's hope we get it. All right. Now, I would be willing to take questions on either or both of my reports. Any questions from the board? Yes, Michelle.
So I just wanted to comment on the building inspector section, starting on page 160 of the packet. Based on some public comment we've received and on board direction, I do feel that this is a bit outside the scope of the powers that the trustees have conferred upon the mayor. But I also feel that that's a little bit fuzzy. So I would like to move that we add to the agenda an opportunity to review the powers conferred on the mayor by the board, just to get some clarification on that.
Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Discussion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay. And just for clarification on this, the only reason I did this is because we were getting conflicting stories from 2 sections of the community, and I just wanted the facts. So I went out there and talked to as many people I could have contact information on just to get the facts. Yes.
And I want to be clear that I appreciate the work you put into it and the data itself. I just want to make sure that we are being clear with ourselves and with the public on the proper scope.
Okay, that's fine. I fully concur with that. All right, next on the agenda are committee reports. First up is Finance and Personnel, Dave and Karen.
My colleague's shaking her head, so I guess we're saying nothing to report, except that tomorrow we'll be meeting at 9:30 to sign checks and reviewing finances. We're going to be doing a deeper dive into reserve PTO and also medical insurance with the staff.
Okay.
Not in a manner of supervising them.
Got it. All right, Government Affairs, Public Safety, Mick and Michelle.
Our last meeting was held last Wednesday, May 5th, at Town Hall. We discussed the training being completed by our police force. Training updates will be included by the police department in future board meetings. We discussed resource sharing with Hotchkiss, which will end May 15th. We discussed vehicle status, including that of car cameras. We're still reviewing animal shelters and review of our ordinance for them. Food truck or mobile retail food establishments was discussed and was included in the packet. The ADU ordinance is under review, including a legal opinion on the water lines and the change of use for existing water lines. The STR survey results have been compiled and included in the packet for your review and discussion at a future board meeting. As you can see, there's a lot of data in there, and we wanted to give everyone a chance to review that before discussion. Finally, we discussed trying to keep the street gutters clean at the sidewalk intersections to make it clean for everyone, but especially for those in wheelchairs or powered wheelchairs. And the next meeting is scheduled for June 2nd at 10 a.m. at Town Hall. The public is welcome.
Okay.
Anything to add, Michelle?
I just want to remind everyone that in addition to what you have in the packet, the survey analytics are available through the town website, and you can also get a copy of every individual survey response through the town. It is a very long document, but it is available for review if anyone would like to. We want to be fully transparent with these results and what's included.
Okay, thank you. All right, Public Works, Utilities, Facilities, Bill and Tammy.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll speak to that. Tammy and I, as Public Works Committee, met today with Travis and Corinne. We had about 15 items on our agenda to speak about. The first one was JDS Hydro. Corinne did receive the draft report. It comes under a confidential draft, and she's asked us not to share information with it, but I believe it's been sent to all the committee members for your review. And in your email that you asked for comments back on the 18th, I think that's a little soon for us. We're asking that it's off on at least the 25th to get comments back to you.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I just wanted it to be clear that because of my being out of the office at the time, that if the DOLA extension agreement has come in, that those comments won't be provided to JDS until I return on June 1st.
Okay, I just think that the length and the breadth of the document require a little bit more time to review. We asked for an update on the SGM mapping program, and there's some asset inventory work going on at the sewer plant that still needs to be done to complete the mapping. Third Street project, we had a bid opening on April 30th, and the town did not receive any qualified bids. Therefore, the town is going to go out for another bid, and the Public Works Committee suggested that, and I think in association with Travis, that we employ an engineer to write a bid document so we could get a detailed bid document that the bidders could respond to. The water, the debt reserve for the water and sewer, that's on our horizon, and they've asked us to wait until after the audit to get those numbers. The parks, We understand now that the town, this high school's gonna have the graduation in the park this year. And we ask about weed control, watering, maintenance for the summer, and what the plans are. Also about trash cans in the park. We're finding the trash cans are full to overflowing and not getting dumped. And dogs are getting into them, so the town's gonna look at what they can do about that. The Lee's Park bore is done, and hasn't been hooked up yet, but Travis said he's gonna get it hooked up pretty quick. And I had on my notes here from this morning that SGM's gonna provide has not provided a timeline, and Travis will provide a timeline tonight. And I think that was on the mapping stuff. Did he get a timeline?
Yes, that, Travis said that their SGM anticipates to have the draft to us by the end of the week.
Okay, good. Piping project on the Stewart ditch. There's some more work that needs to be done there to prevent rock. It is rock in the pipe now, and so there's some more work to be done there, getting that fixed so it doesn't happen again. Fire hydrant gauges, as you know, maybe you don't remember, we approved fire hydrant pressure gauges and for the fire hydrants around town. The gauges were received, but they did not send them with the correct extensions. So as soon as they get those, they'll get them installed, and the provider is going to help put those in. We discussed earlier this evening about the fill station. Although it's ready to go, they haven't started selling water yet. We suggested that since we are spilling water, that we go ahead and start selling water. But the council needs to develop a policy in light of the perceived drought that we're going to have. So I think it's going to be on the next meeting. Out here behind the town hall, just to the west of us, there's the Paonia Ditch crossing. We put the new crossing in and the concrete and whatnot, but there's no guardrails there. I think it's a real safety issue there. We got to do something there, I believe, to help improve the safety. We did discuss the street sweeping schedule, and Travis says he should be hasn't got his brooms yet for the street sweeper, which would help a lot with the curb and gutter cleanup. The spring flows. We don't have records in the town hall for the spring flows, and we understand that Department of Natural Resources, the ditch rider, help me out with his name, Tammy. Luke Reschke does have records, so we've asked the town to get those from Luke Reschke. And then at the 1 million gallon tank, we need an altitude type structure to bleed water from the 1 million into the line. That was going to be part of JDS Hydro's work, but since their contract has been suspended or is under a type of action, that Travis contact SGM to get some engineering help and get that project completed. Are there any questions?
Yes, Dave.
I was wondering about, since you mentioned guardrails, across Minnesota Creek, there's a bit of a guardrail, but it was built with 2 extensions that are supposed to protect people from falling into the creek.
Yeah.
And neither one of those extensions have ever been installed. The guy that brought the guardrail in didn't have the concrete, and so it's 2 small concrete things.
Yes, that's down there by your house?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, okay, I know where that's at.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something I think that the Public Works should look at getting those done. That's an especially dangerous one because there's a pretty good fall associated with it.
About 20 feet.
Yeah, somebody could really be hurt there. Other questions?
I have a question. So the rocks in the Stewart Mesa, that's
Okay,
that's our little line coming off of the canal that
Yes.
has the issue? Okay.
Yes. And so Travis is going to get his guys on that. Hopefully get it knocked out here pretty quick.
Okay, great. Any other questions? All right, seeing none, thank you very much. All right, Tammy, tree board.
Tree Board, April 30th, we had an Arbor Day tree planting. Hopefully you can read about it in the DCI tomorrow. Mayor Baccarin read a proclamation declaring April 30th Arbor Day in Paonia, and Paonia Elementary School and North Fork School of Integrated Studies 5th and 6th graders came over and joined us in the tree planting. Two students, one from Paonia Elementary School and one from NIFSIS, have submitted an annual a poster for the annual Arbor Day poster contest sponsored by the Colorado Tree Coalition and Colorado State Forest Service. No winners have been announced yet, so we have our fingers crossed, and the tree board's next meeting is 5 p.m. Tuesday, May 18th. Nothing else to report on that.
Okay, any questions? Nope. All right.
Okay.
Last one, Advisory Water Board.
Okay, in addition to, and this was not stated at the beginning of the meeting, but the committee did vote to recommend a declaration of stage 1 drought conditions to the board. So, but that was passed without our recommendation, which is fine. At our last meeting, which was May 3rd, we discussed ways to ensure equitability of water restrictions between in and out of town users to ensure that all water users remain connected during this drought. We discussed concerns over the ADUs, subdivisions, and more building as they relate to increased water consumption. We discussed the possibility of a gray water ordinance to help reduce impacts on the town's water system, the possibility of an education program on the town water system, and we discussed inviting guest speakers to our meetings to discuss topics critical to our water system and water use. And the committee also voted unanimously to move our regular monthly meetings from the 4th Wednesday to the 3rd Wednesday in order to provide more timely reports to the board. Last month there was a 3-week lag between the committee and the board meetings. We did reschedule that meeting, so it was only 2 weeks, but our next meeting is scheduled for 5 p.m. Wednesday, May 19th, which is the Wednesday between the meetings.
Okay.
That ends my report.
All right, any questions? Yes, Dave.
Yeah, I just wondered about that 3rd Wednesday thing on the month. I wonder if it makes sense to have it the Wednesday in between the council meetings.
Yeah, that's the third Wednesday. That's
No, because we're always 2nd and 4th at this point. Okay. All right. Sure, Ms. Patson.
Christina Patterson, Price Road. I just wanted to know if the Water Committee meeting was going to be added to the YouTube channel to be viewed.
I have an audio recording, and I just haven't had an opportunity to upload it.
Okay. All right. We have reached the end of our agenda, and I call this meeting adjourned. Thank you, everyone, for your patience throughout, and I hope you have a good weekend. How about we get through the rest of the week? Have a good week. All right.
The unfortunate thing about tonight is the fact that Suzanne wasn't here when you read the beginning.
I know, but there was no way it was going to get changed.